Chad Murray here. Pay or go to court. Payroll, got to get it right. And I'll tell you, for the years upon years, I had no clue the payroll laws, and I was always guessing, how do I pay my people? Is it hourly? How do you pay for overtime laws? I didn't even know about that back in the day. I mean, do you want to do commission? Do you want to do performance pay? How do you pay your managers? How do you bonus? These are all questions that you want to know what's right for your business, right? Because you want everyone to perform at their best and get paid for it. So if they're making money, you're making money. And that's what this episode's about today, is how do you get it right? Because you don't want to end up in court like I did. So let's talk about this. So for years, I just literally, I mean, before I started my business, at the same, a couple years before Google, but even, you didn't really start using Google till 2005, 2006. And, it didn't really, wasn't like awesome till, after 2010. And so as we were just learning this, how to use Google, you just didn't have resources. You didn't know how to find a lot of answers, other than like literally old school going to the library or calling somebody up. And I'll tell you some things, even today, it is funny how, in a lot of the Facebook groups, and I have a very large Facebook group with over 2,000 chimney companies in it. And they don't know how to pay people correctly. There's so many laws, but there's some fundamental laws you got to know. Let me tell you my story, how I found out fundamentally, literally in court. So here I am, always trying to motivate my people, my sales guys, my workers, and always making sure if I paid them more and motivated them more, I'd make more money. And that's how I've always felt. I mean, I hope I'm not unique out in as an operator, owner, that's how you should be treating your people. If you're always trying to cut payroll, you're trying to cut your resource that's really providing you with how to make money and building that up. So first off, make sure that you're trying to figure out that even keel of how much do I pay them is too much, and what is the right pay for the skill sets, and that's never easy thing. But how to pay people is legally, and I don't mean like we all know about commission, we know hourly, we know salary, but what is really the case? So I'll tell you what I thought. Back from 2001, I used to pay commissions, and then at some point in time, because of our business ebb and flows with seasonal stuff, I ended up putting my guys out in the field on salary. Why did I do this? Because I wanted to give them a good living, and I gave them I called it the over salary. Like, I paid them for back in the 2000s, 2003, 4, 5, 6, whatever. I gave them a really good salary. So like if you worked for me, you're 23-year-old person, guy or girl, and out in the field, I'd pay you $1,000 a week, which was pretty good. Now, my sales guys now and that couldn't even make it off that. If that's what we paid, that would be the minimum pay, and that'd be a bad week. But I'll just say, for a lot of people, especially back then, at the size of company that I was, paying someone $1,000, and maybe even today, still might be a lot of money, especially for a 24-year-old. Maybe it is 23-year-old, whatever. So, but I would pay people $1,000, and I would not pay them overtime. But we didn't schedule a lot of overtime, so it wasn't ever, for years, was never an issue. Well, 2000, I think it was 2016, might have been even a little closer to 15. I got served a lawsuit. And I'll tell you the story, how this goes down. I got served on January 30th, and I got it on that year. It was a Friday. So January 31st was going to be on Saturday. We were throwing a massive at our new 2-year-old house New Year's Eve party. Things were great. Things were good, making money. And then I get this lawsuit, and it says collective action suit, which means my one employee filed an overtime lawsuit against me, which everybody else in the business in my company could add themselves to the lawsuit. Now they have to voluntarily add themselves. That's why it's called collection action and not the other kind where that it's just if they get a big settlement and then you apply to get the money out of it. No, this is collective action. You had to put yourself in it. So here's what happened. You learn a lot of stuff when you get served. So when you get served and you read this, you go through so many emotions. I mean, you want to murder, you want to cry, you want to beat someone up, you want to just questions like why, what did I do wrong, what did this guy do wrong or girl, blah blah. You go in a tailspin, and with me, I went into a rage. I called this employee up who happened to be on a roof at the time with a helper. And I said, what the hell is this? And he starts like talking to me and blah, blah, all this bullshit. And I said, you're fired. Get the F off the roof and take a cab home. I don't give a shit. And I then called my attorney, told him what I did. And he's like, no, don't, you can't fire him. That's the whistleblower law. And I'm like, oh, shnikey shit. And so I called the kid back, and he accepts the job back. And then 30 minutes later, I called him back and fired him again, and that was final. And then I called him back later that night, or maybe that next day on Saturday, and I set up a time for Monday to meet with him. So I meet with him. He's schooling me about overtime and how, by the way, the lawsuit said I owed him like 500 hours, which was complete BS. This dude was done at 1:30 almost every day, and occasionally he would run a 13-14 hour day, but then by the end of the week he never, very rarely, he worked for me for 3 or 4 years, very rarely ever did 40 hours. By the way, I like this guy. So this was a shock to me because I liked this guy. And let me tell you what prompted him to go to an attorney. So my technicians' uniforms were being ruined constantly from caulk. We do a lot of roofing and we caulk a lot of flashing. And these guys were typically clean for a dirty job. And we also clean chimneys. But all of a sudden we had a trend where people were wiping caulk on their shirts and jeans instead of taking a rag up there or wearing gloves and whatever. And I mean, it started getting pretty pricey for me for stupidity, dirtiness, and not doing your due diligence on to help out with keeping your uniform clean. I mean, we even got to the point where even giving them T-shirts to wear instead of their uniforms when they're on the roof. So if they did caulk it up, they caulk that up, which wasn't a fix. It wasn't even a remedy. It was just kind of like do this instead, which was not the desired outcome. So anyway, I didn't know my payroll laws. So what did I do? I told everybody in the next meeting, I said, listen, I did look up, is it legal for me to charge them to clean their own uniforms? And they have to opt in or out. So the opt-in was keep your uniforms and wash them yourself, and you must press and iron them. Otherwise you have to pay for this, or you get it done, or you got to pay for it. It was $13 a week to do it because I wasn't going to do it anymore. I wasn't going to pay for their stuff. So I told them in a meeting that's what we're going to do, and that's what we did. Problem was, Legally, you're supposed to have them sign something. If you're going to change their pay or deduct something from their pay, they've got to sign something that says this is coming out. That's the legal thing to do. I didn't know that. And by the way, when I Googled it, it didn't say that. Otherwise, I would have done it, right? So a couple weeks later, we get this lawsuit, and I find out at that breakfast I was taking with him on that following Monday. He tells me the whole story like a dumbass. It tells me how we did this. That how what it went into for that, and the lawyer turned it into an overtime case because I wasn't paying overtime, which unfortunately is the law. But I had him on salary, thinking, this was my thought. You're on salary. I'll work you forever because you're getting paid whether you work 10 hours or you're getting paid 60 hours. That was what I thought salary was. And by the way, it is like that if you're a manager and manage two people, and it depends on your state, but that's the federal law for the FSLA or the DOL. That's you have to be in the category of a manager, and you can work a manager to death. Where it came for me, I was an assistant manager and then a manager of a restaurant. I was management though. They worked us like dogs, and we only got paid like $1,400 a month. And I worked seriously 240 to 260 hours a month and only got paid less than $1,500 a week or a month. And I thought when I opened my my chimney service in 1997 that when I thought about how to pay people, that's what I did. I'm going to do that. Well, yeah, it didn't go very well. It wasn't correct. So what did I do? And I'm not going to go into all the lawsuit and how that all ended up. I will say this. I had to spend 2 months doing all of my employees' time. I had to figure it out and figure out if I owed them overtime. And if I did owe them overtime for 2 years, it was going to be times 3 of whatever I owed them. So it was the penalty, the overtime, and then their pay, and that's what it was. So if I owed them $100, I had to pay them $300. That's how the law works. So that was what hold on. Let me backtrack just one thing real quick. You got to hire the right attorney. My attorney that I called up originally, who told me I couldn't do whistleblower because of that, is my hound. He's my dude that when a client calls up or sues us or does something stupid, he defends it, and he's awesome, and he's a bulldog and all this. Well, guess what? He doesn't know shit about labor law, employment law, totally different animal than just being a blood-sucking vampire. You got to know this niche, employment law. It's a little niche inside the lawyer niches, and it is very specialized, and it's got its own tactics, and it's got its own offense and defenses. And long story short is I had the wrong attorney telling me the wrong stuff for about 2 months. And boy, were we getting our butts kicked by this labor attorney. She was mopping the floor with us. So then I find out about to hire this other attorney, which comes to find out she's awesome. She was her. So we find out that she was the mentor of the girl of the other attorney. So I now hired the mentor of the girl who's kicking her ass, which was awesome. And she tells me, go add up everybody's hours in the last 2 years and pay them. Well, I told you we didn't do much. So I had to go through about 100 employees over the last, well, not 100, maybe 50 or 60 employees over the last 2 years. And I had to calculate if I owed them overtime, and then I had to pay them. And I did. And guess how much? This is so dumb. Out of 50 employees that had worked for me that didn't qualify as a manager, because the managers I did not have to pay overtime to, I only was out about $11,000. And I paid it all to all of them. They're all happy. And none of my employees got into the lawsuit. None of them. Every one of them stayed off because not only they got a fat ass check from me, for $400, $500, $600, maybe $1,000, but they also loved me and liked me, and I loved them too. Nobody wanted this. By the way, This put a huge black cloud on our business at the time it was going on. I mean, it literally it brought on some events later where I found out some guys started their own business against me, and they were fearful. I hated them for it. I now understand a little bit more how they were probably going to eventually do it anyway, but at this time it scared them. And if you heard another podcast of mine, I also had the IRS on me at the same time. So you want to talk about one screwed up 4 months of my life? It was probably the most stressful 4 months of my life to date, by far. Because I had the lawsuit going on, I had the IRS, I had to find out these guys are all starting their own business. And so yeah, I didn't know the payroll laws. So then I find out about the payroll laws, and my attorney, then after the lawsuit's all over, we do an audit of how we're paying everybody to get it right. And we learn how to pay people, how to do stuff, get a digital clock. So it's not just a punch card, track their hours, and blah, blah, blah. So let's go over some of the ways you can pay people. So hourly is easy. You pay them hourly. They must clock in, clock out. Simple. And they got to do it there's different ways of how to clock in and out. If they're coming to your shop, the second they show up, if they start work, they must clock in. And the second they come back and clock out is at the shop. Now, if they're leaving their house and going directly to a job and they're on clock in, that drive time is not, now you have to check your laws, but that drive time to the job, unless they stop somewhere like Home Depot, is non-clockable hours. And when they leave the job site, same thing. They leave, clock out, they're driving home. That's their time. Unless you mandatory make them come back to the shop. Then it's shop to shop. Clock out, shop to shop. So you need to check this out. I'm not an attorney. By the way, I must give you this. I'm not an attorney. I'm giving you advice on how to check your own laws. And these are the laws as I understand them, which I could be very wrong. I don't think I am, but I could be. So make sure you do your due diligence and follow up how you're going to do this on your own with your state. And I would suggest you get a labor attorney to look at stuff, or an HR department to do it as well. And I even found some HR departments even did it wrong. But okay, so that's hourly. Salary. You can put guys on salary, no problem. Still got to track their hours. They still get overtime. So even though you put someone on $1,000 a week, if they work 41 hours, you got to take 1,000 divided by 40, and whatever that overtime is, time and a half, you got to pay them. Sucks, but that's the case. Now, let's talk management. And that's not management now. Now, management, if you put them on salary and they supervise 2 or more people, work them to death. Now, that's as I've read it, and it's been a few years since I've read the laws. They may have changed, but that's that. Now let's talk performance pay. Okay, commission. So there's 2 types. There's more than one types of commission. There's commission, straight commission, where you give them a cut of how you're going to define the commission. Like, you're going to give them off of the gross? Are you going to give them off of the net? Or are you going to give them off of gross net? So let's talk about it. So you're going to give them off of gross. So they go sell $1,000. Doesn't matter what the cost is. You're going to give them a percentage off that 1,000. Okay. Let's just say you're going to pay them off of net. So let's just say off of that $1,000 job, you have $300 worth of cost. So you're going to pay a commission off that $700. That's net. Now let's talk a gross net. Gross net is when you pay somebody. No, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. I just explained. So gross net is what I just explained net. So gross net is you determine what it is and what some things you'll take off and then become a net. And then sometimes net is you're going to figure out everything. So you're going to figure out what your labor is, what this, you're going to get down to the nitty-gritty number of pure profit, and you're going to give them off of that. And then gross net is when you kind of decide what you're going to take off. Like for me in my business, we do gross net. Most of the time, if it's an easy job and the cost is under $150, I think, Might be 100, might be 200. I don't remember what the number is. But if the cost is less than that, we don't care. We're just going to pay them the percentage. So it'd be off of gross. But if they do that same $1,000 job, and let's just say the cost is $400, well, that $400 is coming off. They're only getting paid 600 or off the 600. So you follow me on there? So I hope that makes sense to you. So you got to know how to do this. There's also a thing with commission. You ready for this? And I don't know how this really works, but if they're on commission, they better average. This is what was explained to me by my attorney. And whatever the dollar amount from the FLSA is, not the DOL, go look up FLSA laws. And if you're paying commission, I believe the last time I looked, it was $767. They better average that. So you better make sure that they're commissioning at least that at the end of the year. Otherwise, they can come back at you for back pay or whatever, stuff like that. Now here's my favorite way to pay people. Hear me up. Clear your mind. I'm going to take a drink. My favorite way to pay people is performance pay. It's a side of commission that you have your sale. The sale gets the amount, and the amount gets knick-knacked down if they don't perform their job in certain areas. So you'll define your performance pay. For instance, I'll define ours, at least as I remembered. I'm not looking at a paper here. So you get, let's just say 10% of gross. Let's just go there. So they go sell $1,000 job. They get $100. Okay, 10%. Now, to get the full 10%, they have to hit some qualifiers, and they must do these. Otherwise, percentages start coming off. For instance, if you don't get the check, you lose 0.5%. Now you're only getting paid 9.5% if you don't get the check. But if you don't get the check and you have an excuse why you didn't get the check and you write it in there, well, you get your 10% because there's always excuses to every role. If you don't ask for a review and you must show a picture of your hand going to the client, this is how we really do this, and this is no joke. They don't do that. They lose 1%. I ask for a review at everything. I want to make sure you're doing it. So if you don't ask for a review, you lose 1%. In our case, you lose 2% if you're a job installer and you don't show a picture of your helmet, harness, and rope attached and you're on the roof. We just got a guy caught, didn't have his shit on, but you know what? He took a picture on the ground with the stuff off, took it off, and then went on and did his job. And the customer, funny enough, did a 5-star review about how great we were, took a picture of them on the roof, and him and his helper had none of their stuff on. I wanted to fire the guy because they knew better because he also deceived us, but we ended up holding on to him. And he's a good guy. He's been with us a long time. However, like with anybody, you give them an inch. Sometimes they take a mile. And when it comes to rope and harness training and working on a roof, because we're on so many of them, I know too many stories of people dying, getting seriously hurt, or just hurt. No one needs to die or get hurt. So that's why we do our safety protocols and try to stay as OSHA compliant as possible. So anyway, and by the way, you get to name anything you want to deduct them for if they're not doing it. And you can put it in there. You can also do a category of this. Check this out. I love this one. We can change it at any time because if you don't do something that's not on, we are specified, we will take percentages away from you at will. And by the way, we've only used that once for something stupid, and I can't remember what it was. But it leaves it open. If they do something dumb, I'm pulling percentages. Right? So we do that. That is the best way to pay people. So like a sales guy, let's say you're going to put a sales guy on performance pay. You got to ask for a review, got to do the notes, got to have measurements, all that stuff's got to be there. So they can go sell a $50,000 job, get 10%, and if they don't get the measurements correct or all the measurements, they're going to lose 2%. Because I have now hired somebody on the back end if they don't go do it, to go do it, or we send them back to do it and they earn their percentage back, right? So, but these are the ways you get people to do it, and it works. Now, how do you transition to commission or performance. Just last night, I was on a conference call or a community Zoom call in an industry, and we were talking about commission and how to maneuver people from hourly to commission, because some people just aren't built for it. They don't understand it. And what happens when you move people to commission and performance is they actually like own it more. I can't explain it. You just have to do it and watch it. They'll get done earlier. You'll see a guy that normally you've given him 100 of these type of jobs over the years, and he never gets back by 5 o'clock or right at 5 o'clock. But put him on performance pay, he can get done at 1:30, 2 o'clock now, and probably done better. Like your like you're not going to switch this because of quality control. You're going to switch this because they're going to make more money. They'll be faster. And by the way, they have the opportunity now to work the same amount of hours, pick up more jobs, maybe work a little extra, and boom, they get it. So with commission, they've got to earn that minimum. So, and you got to check the laws on this. You don't have to pay overtime, I think. Asterisk, I don't remember. We don't. They if they make more than 766 average at the end of the year, then you're in the clear. That's my understanding. See, I don't even know. And by the way, here's the really, really, really messed up thing about employment law. When you ask your attorney, it's up to subject questionable. Like they don't even know because the law is written so wonky. It's so dumb. So it's at how you perceive it or how you're going to apply it, and then could make you up to being sued. So that's why you get it in writing. You never ever go off of it a different way. You do it. Everybody signs, and then you'll probably win in court if you stuck to your guns. And by the way, when we had our attorney do it, I had her sign something, and so that at least she helped me do it. So I mean, I have my due diligence of that we did it. And so yeah, but that's it. I don't want to see anybody struggle with how to pay anymore. Also, go back. So So let me go back. So I know that's shiny objects. I went somewhere else on that. Sorry for that. But how do you transition over to it? So you have to prove to the guys that they'll make more money. That's just what it is. You have to go back a month or two or every quarter for the last year and take a payroll week that they worked, put the commission to it versus the hourly, show them they make more money. And it's not for everybody. My lead technician 2 years ago quit. He'd been with me almost 15 years and he quit. We gave him 2 months to decide. We gave everybody 2 months to decide. And I'll tell you why. We were chicken to do it. So we gave him 2 months to decide. The day we rolled it out, he wouldn't sign the paper and he walked out. Happens. We've never looked back. It's been fine. And it sucked. The good guy. It just is what it is. And so, but we proved to him, he just couldn't, in his mind, he could not wrap around it. So there's one more aspect to this. You don't have to do everybody the same. You run your own little dictatorship and you get to do pay people different ways. You do not have to pay the guy on the left to the guy on the right exactly the same. It does not matter. You can experiment with one, talk to him and say, I'd like to try this. Spell it all out and see if it works. And then if it does, everybody else can go on it, or you can give everybody options. Do you want to stay hourly? Do you want to stay, or do you want to go to commission? Once we start this, it's a living thing. It may change because you may do it wrong. So you leave that open because it may just not be right. And that goes both ways. It might be too good for you and they're getting screwed, or it might be too good for them and you're not making what you should make. So you leave it open because you got to dial it in. And so, but if you do the math on everything, you'll kind of know what it is. But I will tell you, let's just say, it will work out. The people will work better. You'll have less quality control. By the way, you don't have to pay them if they mess something up. Your ass goes back for free. That's it. So I'm not paying you to go back and fix your mess up. I paid you for that. You got paid for that. Go back. And so, By the way, the kid that got busted, the team that got busted with no harness stuff, and took 2% off for the next 3 weeks, and had him sign it because I don't know how many jobs they've done, but I punished him by reducing his pay for 2 or 3 weeks, 2%. Had him sign it. It is what it is. He signed it. Came to work every day. So I mean, still is. So I mean, that's what you're dealing with. I mean that, and so I mean, but I want you to know how to pay people, because if you don't, you're going to go to court, and you will go to court, and you're going to find it's the worst experience you've ever had. Almost as bad as my appendix rupture. If you've heard my other stories about that, it is bad. You do not want to be in a lawsuit with your employees. It is gut wrenching. It feels like you're going to lose your life. It just everything you've worked for is gonna fall apart, and could, by the way, because if you're doing it so wrong, and 5 other people decide to get on, and let's say you've been doing it wrong for 5 or 6 hours every week for 2 years with, let's just say, 5 employees, you do the math and times it by 3. And pay your attorney, and probably, more than likely, pay the other attorney's fees. So you can see how this gets up to $100,000, $200,000, and yet you're only $1 million company or less. That's why you got to get this right. I don't want you to have to go through what I went through. It sucks, and that is not where you want to be. And I will tell you, I have facilitated probably 5 employment lawsuits now since I've been a consultant / coach, and every one of them it brings back memories. It's gut wrenching. I'm watching them go through it too. It just it hurts. You don't want to go there. Get your pay right. Get everybody happy, making money, and that's how you run the company. So, guys, that's my time for payroll, man. Get it right. Do it right. By the way, if you want to contact me, chadmurray.biz, you can go there. You got to do the www.chadmurray.biz. You can find information about me there. Want to talk to me, go ahead, fill out a Calendly thing, and I would love to talk to you about your business. If you need help on figuring out your payroll, by all means, go to it. And by the way, at the end of this video, you will see. Actually, you don't even have to go to www.biz. I just made this change. I got coached by a coach for me. Put a QR code on how to get a hold of me, which takes you to that page, and I'll have that. So as soon as you're done here in a couple seconds, go ahead and click on that and make an appointment. See you later. Welcome to the Outside the Business Boxes podcast. So we're